My name is Emma Carter, and 18 months ago, my entire life fit inside the trunk of a 15-year-old Honda Civic. I was 30 years old, divorced, drowning in debt, and unemployed. The hardest part wasn't losing my apartment. It wasn't sleeping in my car. It wasn't even wondering where my next meal would come from. The hardest part was hearing my own family laugh. That Sunday afternoon, everyone gathered at my parents' house for my father's 65th birthday. I almost didn't go. My bank account showed just $32. My gas tank was nearly empty. My landlord had changed the locks 3 days earlier after I missed rent for the third month in a row. But Mom insisted. Family comes first, she'd said. I believed her. I should have known better. As I walked into the backyard carrying a cheap grocery store cake, my younger brother Jason spotted me first. He smirked. Well, look who finally showed up. My cousin Melissa whispered something that made everyone at her table laugh. I pretended not to notice. Dad barely looked up from his steak. Mom hugged me, but it felt rushed. During dinner, the conversation turned toward careers. Jason had just bought a new lake house. Melissa had been promoted to regional director. Even my younger cousin Tyler talked proudly about buying his first investment property. Then Aunt Linda smiled sweetly. So, Emma, what are you doing these days? The table became quiet. I forced a smile. I'm looking. Jason laughed. Still, a few people chuckled. It's a tough market, I answered quietly. Melissa leaned back. Maybe if you'd stayed at your old company instead of chasing your little startup dream. More laughter. Nobody mentioned that the startup failed because investors disappeared during the recession. Nobody remembered I'd spent years helping everyone else. When Jason needed money for college, I paid. When Mom had surgery, I covered the hospital bills. When Melissa couldn't afford daycare, I babysat every weekend for almost a year. Funny how people forget kindness when you're no longer useful. After dinner, Dad called everyone into the living room. I have an announcement. Jason grinned. Dad handed him an envelope. Inside was the deed to a vacation cabin. Everyone applauded. Mom looked emotional. You've worked so hard. Jason hugged Dad dramatically. Then Dad turned toward me. We wanted to help you too. Hope filled my chest. Maybe they'd offer me a temporary room. Maybe a small loan. Instead, Dad reached into his pocket and placed a folded $20 bill into my hand. Get yourself something to eat. Silence. Then Jason burst into laughter. So she doesn't spend it on another failed business. The room exploded with laughter. Even people who looked uncomfortable said nothing. I stood there frozen. The $20 bill felt heavier than a brick. Mom whispered, "They're only joking." Were they? I looked around the room. Nobody defended me. Nobody said this had gone too far. I quietly placed the bill back on the coffee table. I won't need it. Jason shrugged. Suit yourself. I walked outside before anyone could see the tears. That night I slept inside my car behind a grocery store parking lot. Rain hit the windshield for hours. I stared at the ceiling wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. Around midnight my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Is this Emma Carter? Yes. My name is Robert Hayes. I found your resume online. We're opening a small logistics company 3 states away. The pay isn't great, but we're looking for someone willing to build something from the ground up. I closed my eyes. Maybe. Just maybe. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Emma stared at the phone for several seconds, wondering if the call was some kind of scam. "Are you still there?" the man asked. "Yes. I'm here. My name is Robert Hayes," he repeated. "I won't promise you an easy job. The company is new, and we'll all be working long hours. But I read your resume. I think you've been underestimated." No one had said those words to Emma in years. "When do you need me?" she asked. "If you're serious." "Monday morning." She looked at the dashboard clock. It was already Sunday night. The office was nearly 700 miles away. "I'll be there." Emma drove through the night with less than half a tank of gas and just $12 left after buying coffee. Twice she thought about turning around. Every mile reminded her of the laughter she had left behind. Whenever doubt crept into her mind, she remembered Jason's voice. "She's a failure." That sentence became fuel. 2 days later, she arrived in a small town where the company's warehouse stood. It wasn't impressive. The building was old. The parking lot was cracked. Half the shelves inside were empty. But Robert greeted every employee with a handshake. "There are only 6 of us," he said with a smile. "Everyone here matters." For the first time in years, Emma felt respected. The work was exhausting. She answered customer calls during the day, loaded delivery trucks at night, balanced invoices after everyone else had gone home. Some nights she slept only 4 hours. Her hands became rough. Her back ached constantly. Still, she never complained. Because every paycheck meant another step away from the woman everyone had laughed at. 3 months later, the company landed its biggest contract. The staff celebrated with pizza and soda. Robert pulled Emma aside. "I've been watching you." She smiled nervously. "I hope that's a good thing." "It is." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a promotion letter. Operations manager. Along with it came a salary increase that nearly doubled her income. Emma stared at the paper. "I don't know what to say." Robert smiled. "Say you'll stay." "I will." Instead of buying expensive clothes or a luxury car, Emma made a promise to herself. She would never be broke again. She rented a modest apartment, cooked every meal at home, saved nearly half of every paycheck. She spent evenings reading books about investing, leadership, and business. While others relaxed on weekends, Emma enrolled in online certification courses. Every new skill made her more valuable. Every dollar she saved became another brick in the future she was building. 6 months after joining the company, another surprise arrived. The owners offered key employees the chance to buy shares in the business. Most workers declined. "It'll probably fail," one employee joked. Emma remembered hearing those same words about her. She invested nearly all of her savings. It was terrifying, but she believed in the company, and in herself. Over the next year, everything changed. The business expanded into 3 states. Revenue tripled. New warehouses opened. The value of Emma's shares multiplied many times over. One Friday afternoon, Robert called everyone together. "I have exciting news." He looked directly at Emma. "A national logistics corporation has offered to buy our company." The room erupted in cheers. Then Robert smiled. "Emma, thanks to your ownership shares." He handed her a document. She read the number once. Then again. Her hands began to shake. The sale would make her a millionaire. The same woman who had once slept in her car now had more money than she had ever imagined. That evening, she sat alone in her apartment, staring out the window. She wasn't thinking about the money. She was remembering the $20 bill left on her parents' coffee table. 18 months ago, her family had laughed because they thought her story was over. They had no idea it was only the first chapter. The news of the company's sale spread quickly. Emma's bank account changed overnight. For the first time in her life, she wasn't worried about rent, groceries, or gas. She was financially free. But instead of celebrating with luxury vacations or expensive shopping sprees, she stayed the same. She paid off every dollar of debt. She quietly donated to the homeless shelter where she had once eaten free meals. She created a scholarship fund for single parents trying to rebuild their lives. Because Emma knew exactly how it felt when the world turned its back on you. One afternoon, while sorting through old emails, she saw a message from her mother. It had been almost 18 months since she had spoken to anyone in the family. She almost deleted it. Then she noticed one sentence. "We'd really love to see you." Emma smiled, not because she believed them, because she was finally strong enough to go back. Saturday arrived. Instead of driving her old Honda Civic, Emma pulled up in a sleek black luxury SUV. It wasn't flashy. It was simply reliable, safe, and something she had earned. As she stepped out, conversations around the backyard suddenly stopped. Jason looked at her first. His smile disappeared. Melissa whispered, "Is that Emma?" Even Dad stood frozen. The same people who had laughed at her 18 months earlier couldn't believe what they were seeing. Emma walked toward the house wearing a simple navy blue dress and carrying a small gift for her parents. No designer logos. No jewelry meant to impress. Just quiet confidence. Her mother hurried over. "Emma, you look amazing." Emma hugged her politely. "It's good to see you, Mom." Jason couldn't hide his curiosity. "So, what happened?" Emma smiled. "I got a job." He laughed awkwardly. "Obviously. But that car isn't exactly normal. It's been a good year." Melissa leaned closer. "What company do you work for now?" "I don't." Everyone looked confused. "I helped build a logistics company. We recently sold it." Jason folded his arms. "For how much?" Emma answered calmly. "Enough that I'll never need another paycheck." The backyard fell silent. For the next hour, the family treated her completely differently. People who had ignored her before suddenly wanted to hear every detail. Her cousins asked about investing. Her uncles complimented her determination. Even Aunt Linda said, "I always knew you'd bounce back." Emma almost laughed. No. She remembered exactly what everyone had said 18 months ago. Then Dad quietly walked onto the back porch where Emma was standing alone. For several moments, neither of them spoke. Finally, he sighed. "I owe you an apology." Emma looked at him. "You embarrassed me that day." He lowered his head. "I know. I wasn't looking for money. I came because I thought families stood together." His eyes filled with regret. "I failed you." Emma nodded slowly. "You did." There was no anger in her voice. Only honesty. A few minutes later, Jason joined them. He looked uncomfortable. "I've been meaning to call." Emma raised an eyebrow. "For 18 months. He looked away. "I was jealous." She blinked. "Jealous. You always worked harder than anyone. When you failed, it made me feel better about myself." Emma didn't expect that answer. It didn't erase what he had done. But at least it was truthful. Before dinner, Dad stood in front of everyone holding a glass. "I want everyone's attention." The room became quiet. "I owe my daughter a public apology." He looked directly at Emma. 18 months ago, we laughed when she needed us most. We confused success with character. And today she's taught us that true success isn't money. It's dignity, perseverance, and kindness. No one spoke. Some relatives lowered their heads in shame. Others wiped away tears. Emma simply smiled. She hadn't returned for revenge. She had returned to prove something much more powerful. That the people who underestimate you don't get to decide how your story ends.